The difference between the right word and the wrong word, as Mark Twain told us, is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. And when you're writing historical fiction, the stakes here can be quite high, because if you put the wrong word in a character's mouth, you can pull your reader out of the time and place that you're trying to keep them in. And that is unfortunate. So I've done that, I have to admit. In Year of Wonders, my first novel, I have my 1665 young heroine waxing eloquently about the mauve tide of the heather moving across the mountainside of her Peak District home place. Problem: the first use of the word mauve as a color wasn't until 1796. I know that because somebody actually wrote a book titled Mauve, How One Man Invented a Color That Changed the World. Whoops. So it was not long after that novel came out, and I think I was speaking about it in England, and I met a wonderful English novelist called Jim Crace, who had written a book set in biblical Israel called Quarantine. It's a wonderful novel. And he was telling me about how he researched that novel, and a lot of his research had to do with camping in the Judean desert to get the sense of the place. And he said on the first morning of this camping trip, his Bedouin guide woke him with a cup of lovely cardamom-scented Arabic coffee and said, "Mr. Jim, how did you sleep?" And he said, "Ahmed, I slept like a log." And then he said he raised his eyes to the bare, rock-ribbed hillsides of the Judean desert. Not a log to be seen. So he turned to his guide and he said, "Ahmed, how did you sleep?" And Ahmed said, "Mr. Jim, I slept like a dead donkey." So ever since Jim Crace shared that story with me, I've spent a lot of time going over my manuscripts and trying to find logs and turn them into dead donkeys. So I hope when you read my books, you'll find a lot of dead donkeys in them. It's not always easy. In The Secret Chord, for example, which is set in Second Iron Age Israel, I kept running into a lot of logs. I had to take out the word assassin because the original assassins were a violent Persian sect of the 11th century, and it's not likely my Hebrew tribesmen would have been talking about them. I substituted the word thug, only to realize that that was actually a violent group of Indian outlaws from the 15th century, and my Hebrews would not have been talking about them either. So I didn't find a really good dead donkey in that case, but sometimes you can find them, and I think that the effect is well worth the effort. So in Caleb's Crossing, my young narrator needs to talk about a fetus. And I'm pretty sure that in Massachusetts in 1660, she's not using the word fetus. And lucky for me, there's a wonderful resource, the Oxford Historical Thesaurus of the English Language, that digs down on every word in use from today all the way to early Icelandic. And so if you look up fetus, you can go down to mid-17th century and find that the word she probably would have used is shapeling. If you put the word shapeling into her mouth, I think you can time travel. So, does it really matter? Is it important, or is it just nitpicking? But I think combing through a manuscript looking for bad vocabulary is in some ways very similar to nitpicking. And I think it does matter, and I think it's respectful to you, the reader.